Welcome back to the channel. Here it is Sunday. I'm a little tired today. Worked all weekend and we were tugging on those tree branches and chainsaw, pole saw. You know how it goes. Wood chipper here and then wood splitter. I'm just tired out. I need a break. But I went and mowed a lawn. Needed to be done out of town and Dawson's down doing a lawn because of the rain over the weekend there. It cleared up. It's kind of nice out right now. It's a little bit hot and humid, but I took the cover off this wood chipper to see what the problem was. We got down near the end and we were trying to finish up the last branches there, and the feed roller right there that grabs and pulls it in was way up in the air, and I was like, what is that? And of course it was dark without the cover on there, or with the cover on there. What happened was all the grapevines that we were fighting on that job, when I was cutting those tall pines that were, I don't know, 60 plus feet tall, the lift wouldn't reach them all the way. The grapevines were growing right up in there, so that's what it was happening. It was catching around there. You see the wear marks? That feed roller was way up here and it was just wound right up. And there's still a little bit of debris down in here, but wound right up with grapevines. And look at what happened here. It threw the belt, through the pulley, jarred the bolts. All four bolts come out of the bottom of the drive. The drive shaft blew apart. There's a two-piece drive shaft here with a spring. Engages, disengages with that cable. And now we got to fix this. I got to figure it out. So I think what I'll do is go ahead and finish disconnecting it so I can look at, so I can take it right off in there. And then I'll know whether the bolt's stripped out and pulled out of the bottom of that worm drive. I think it's a worm gear in there. And see what we got to do to fix this. Well, it's not too hard to take this apart because it exploded in here. The belt got all twisted up. Got a little wear on it. Burnt here a little bit. Got some grease on it because remember we recently greased that. What happened, I can see it now. The bolts that fell out the bottom. There's your worm gear. Your belt turns this, and the belt runs off the cutter wheel PTO part, and this turns the feeder roll, and it's a 30-to-1 ratio. But on the top there's 4 bolt holes. One of them ripped the bolt right out, mounts on this cover. Down here there's 4 bolts. There's actually only one there now. One. And it ripped all the bolts right out of here. It looks like that one's broken off in there. There's no physical thread visible here. That holds it to the machine. So when that got wound up with all this grapevine stuff, there's still more to pull out of here. It was so much that it lifted that wheel all the way up. And I think the drive shaft started flexing, and this thing is start wobbling in there. And of course it's got that big cover that goes over it, so you can't see what's going on. And it's got 2 plastic shields, so if you get a little kickback, I think it's supposed to hold the kickback, but so you can't really see how high the roller's going. I was trying to think of how I could prevent that. Don't put grapevines in with the sticks, you know, the branches. But I recently filled this up with oil, if you remember, and now it's leaking somewhere here. So I'll have to clean this all off and then fill it up again and see if one of these seals or what's leaking here. And on the bottom there's no thread, and that's what holds it to the machine. And right here are two adjustments that you can pull your belt tighter. And now I got to figure out how I can get this to bolt down. Pretty much needs this whole box because it bolts to the box. There's no extra holes here. It's going to be tough because if I can't get it to hold down, it's going to keep moving. You're just relying on this top thing. That's what it was doing. It laid over, and this part disconnected from the drive shaft. Set this down. Oh, there's part of your drive shaft. And oh, there's more parts. And this links up. So that goes into here. There's your U-joint, and that's nice and smooth. This slides back and forth inside this shaft, and the spring engages it. And when you push down with that, this little collar, I don't know if you can see it from there, but it's got a collar that rides in this that goes into the gear, and then it releases, and it just, that's what interlocks it right there. So it looks like the drive shaft's okay. The belt's probably usable, even though it's twisted up now. It should probably be replaced. But those 4 bolt holes have nothing to hook the motor to now, the drive. So, what can we do? That's probably a cast material, so you know, I can't really fill it with weld or anything and re-tap it, and the weld would be so hard anyway. If I drilled it out larger, I'd have to drill this one, and then there's another plate on the bottom. It's a double plate. This is about a 1/2 inch thick anyway. And then let's see what some of the bolts look like here. Here's one that pulled out. Got a weird looking washer on it. Threads are good. I think it just ripped the threads right out of the unit. So I don't know if I can re-tap that and tap it straight. And you can only go down in here about, you can see that. It looks like you can only go down in this about 5/8 of an inch. I don't think it's quite 3/4. So you're going to get in the motor after that. So my guess is I'd have to re-drill it and tap it bigger and drill all them out bigger. Or I'd have to look for one of these things. It looks like the 40 is for a 40 horse tractor. So category 1 up to 40, and then kind of depressing here. Do some figuring out, but the gearing feels good. I mean, it turns right away and it's smooth. The other thing it did is this key was way out here. So it looked like it was pulling on it so hard or vibrating it so hard that, yeah, see the pulley's loose. Pulley's loose on the shaft, so yeah, I can move the key. So we got to take that off. I probably got to grind the end of the key because it was hitting this thing, so I tapped it in. That looks like an easy fix, but this here, I don't know. I'm gonna have to get bolts for it, get the right length, and then re-tap it. I think that's the only way to go. Don't want to get a Harbor Freight kit because they're not worth using. Let's see. I guess that's it. I think if you look over here, and I'll lift this up. These 3 top ones. Let's see, it mounts this way. The 3 top ones. There is thread there. It doesn't look great, but they may tighten up with some Loctite. that would hold the top of the motor to this. But because this isn't stationary to anything, it's not going to help us. So we have to drill these out and make them larger. There's one of the bolts stuck in there. There's all kinds of junk in the thread. So, I'll probably have to go buy a tool. I think what I got is probably not going to be good enough quality to do a good job drilling and retapping. Well, I got out the drill bits and Harbor Freight tap and die set that keeps falling apart here. It's kind of, I don't know if you call it ironic or not, but it's a tap and die. They're supposed to have threads and they thread into this and they don't stay together. All the parts are falling apart and you can pull this handle right out of here. Hi, Tiger. Junk. And what I decided to do is I measured and I got the correct size drill bit to drill it out larger. Found some bolts I had, and this should work, hopefully. Probably have to get some thread locker on them. But the trouble I'm having is the bolts, couple bolts are broken off in there, so it's really hard to drill them out. But if you can see there, we got some threads. I think it's a poor design. Obviously, they should have had a lot more than a 1/4 inch or so, because let's see if I can find it here. The tap, set it down and drop it, because it won't stay in the tool. Nowhere to go. But what they are is they're not straight bits, they're tapered, so they're small for a 1/4 inch. So oh, it's in there, foolish. I'm tired. I told you I was tired. Worked all weekend. Sunday night and I'm tired. We haven't had lunch yet. Wonder why Dawson's not back, because we got one more lawn to mow. Not ours. Neighbors. But they're tapered, and when you thread them in, you're losing a full 1/4 inch. So I'm a little concerned I'm not going to get enough thread on this. But we'll see. Okay, well, it rained a little bit, so I covered this back up. It's got 4 bolts holding this heavy cover on. And what I did was I tapped these out so that I could get new bolts in there. You see, they only go in just a little ways. Kind of a poor design, but this looks like it'll work. I'll just have to get a lock washer put on them, and then it mounts on this plate, which sits on this plate, and it's a lot like a lawnmower engine where it would slide back and forth to tighten the belt up. I think my tamper's like that. And now that we went out to a larger bolt, they don't fit in. So now we got to make these slots bigger. That's going to be fun. I didn't know how else to do it. And this plate is part of the machine base, so you can't take the plate off. And then this plate, get it back up out of here. It's under spring tension. This has 4 bolt holes in that. Well, it looks like this plate's bent. I might have to take the spring off and pull this off in there. Looks like there's a bend right there. Look at them grapevines made a mess. So I have to drill these out. And you can see the wallow where them bolts are just hammering in there. But you couldn't see this unit when the cover's on it. And you can't see the roller with the plastic guides in there. So I didn't know this was going on. So So I got to drill this out. I guess I got to tear this apart now. And then I got to figure out if I can use a grinder. I don't know. A tiny grinder would be cool, wouldn't it? Maybe I can use a cutoff wheel, but that's going to make a mess. Let's see what I can come up with to figure out how to make those slots wider. And I might even go a 1/4 inch longer. And wipe this mess off. I got my old Habitat for Humanity shirt. I wore it a lot. And I tore it. So now it's my grease rag. Let's see here. Home with the helping hands. I volunteered helping build a house in town, and at the ceremony they gave me a shirt. So I'm going to pop this spring off. Yeah, that's got to come right off. And see if I can keep my fingers together here. There we go. Now this should slide out. Yep. And this is your release spring. And when you're pulling on this piece here comes up, taps and unlocks it. Alright, so look at this base plate. Either this is bent up or this is bent down or both. Looks like both. So I'm going to wipe this off, clean this up. Might have to get out a sledgehammer and get after it. And I'm going to take, probably have to get these out of the way, the adjustment bolts. And then wipe this all down because I'm going to be throwing sparks if I use a grinder. And it's going to be a mess. I got to figure that out. I got one of them, I don't know if you call it a knurling tool, but I don't know how I can do a slot and come up with something. If I could take it off from here, it'd be a lot easier. But it's part of the frame. Yeah, the old Habitat shirt's been around a while. Get more uses out of it, right? The BOCE students, which is a vocational school, carpentry students, were helping build the house. And they put the roof on, and I took my scaffolding down. We use scaffolding, put siding on, stuff like that. But they were taking and doing the shingles and throwing them in the yard instead of like a dumpster or anything. And they said, "Don't you have a dump trailer?" And I said, "Yeah." "We'll bring that down. We'll take a load to the dump." So I went down, and of course nobody showed up, just me. And it started to rain. And I said, "Well, got to be done." So I went around the yard all over, what a mess, and cleaned up all the shingles. They had some debris in bags and things, and I picked up the bags, and it was full of wasps. Bees got after me. I got stung. It's raining. I loaded them on the trailer. They told me to run them up to the transfer station. The Habitat has an account there, so it's free. I get there, and they said, "No, you don't have an account." So I paid for a dump trailer load of shingles to dump, and then I took the backhoe down. They wanted to put in a gas line, natural gas line from the city to the house, and then run the water and the sewer. So I dug the trench. It was kind of sunny, but it was, I shouldn't say sunny. It was kind of nice out that day. And then we had some clouds come in, and all of a sudden it rained. My sidewall started caving in. Everybody abandoned me. We had called 811 prior and had everything marked. You have to do that for the city or any dig anyway. And they painted the blue lines, and they painted the gas line, and they painted the electric and water, the whole deal. And instead stay 2 feet or farther away, and I stayed about 4 feet or farther away. And guess what I hit? And you can still see the lines there. I hit the natural gas line. And so I stopped and said, I guess I'm all done digging. What do you mean? I said, I hit the gas line, scared the crap out of me. Didn't hurt nothing. But I gotta be done volunteering before it costs me a lot of money or my life here, you know. So they had to hand dig. I think the students finished hand digging after the rain quit. But I said, I gotta quit now while I'm ahead. I'm still alive. So here's part of our drive shaft. A nice U-joint, a slip knuckle. Goes in that half. And then this goes up on here. Then this big spring, maybe I can just slip it all together. So let's see, the spring goes on this collar, and this goes on like this. See how hard I have to compress that to get that back together? There's a lot of tension on this thing. Maybe I'll just take all this stuff out. That can stay in there. And I'll get some kind of grinder after it here and see what we can do. I looked up that belt. I think, what was it, a 995 or something. It was a 38-inch belt. So I think I'll just take a marker and write 1/2 by 38 on the machine. So if ever it breaks on the job, I can just run over to the store and grab one. And I might try to reuse this belt. It's got a little kink in it, but it's not a high-speed belt. All right. Now we got to make these slots. I should measure. I think there's, right now they look like, I should measure first. 5/16. Hold on. Yeah, they're 5/16 now. So I got to get them out a little bigger than 3/8 so that I can slide this back and forth. These must be locator tabs to keep it from turning. And it lifted and went right up on top of these. That one's rubbed off pretty good. I'm not going to be able to fit underneath, so it's all got to be done up here. Boy, a plasma cutter. Could I be steady if I had one? Time to get a plasma cutter, guys. Excuse to buy a tool. I'm going to make a light attempt with just a plain grinder. And it's was a 4.5-inch wheel. Looks like a 4 now. See, it fits in the slot. Let's see how much damage I can do first. Well, it's definitely not going to be neat doing that, but already it's working. Going to make it weaker because I'm cutting on a, an angle in there. And like I said, if I did a drill bit in one of them neural tools, I know a little Dremel or something will probably take forever. This is 3/16. That's pretty thick. So, let's see what else. And I think this plate I can just, use a drill bit and drill that out. I could try drill bits, but I don't want to break them if you slide it back and forth. Be nice to have a machine that'll, but it's if that plate could unhook, would be nice. Well, the grinder is making a mess, but in my Milwaukee set here, it's a pretty nice set. I was drilling out something and I snapped one a while back. This is a Shockwave titanium, and they're, you know, set up for impacts. This end broke off, so I am using a 25/64, which is an odd size, so it doesn't bother me. I don't know if you guys ever done this, but you start your hole. See, it won't go in there. Get it started and lean your bit over. And this does a little bit neater job than the grinder did. And so I get it going. Just wallow the hole out a little bit. That's a redneck way of doing it. And see how it'll catch and bind? Grabbing right in there. Let's see how it's working. You'll hear the comments on that. Rough on a drill bit, but it's broken drill bit. I have a drill bit sharpener. I'll probably put a new end on it, but it won't match these. This has that special cut end on it. So this isn't costing me any grinding wheels or anything. Let's check the bolt, see if it works. I probably have to be a little larger because I may not. See that? They may not line up exact. But it looks like it's going to work, so I'll probably just clean up the metal. Maybe I'll take a file and file these edges a little bit, make them super smooth. But the bolt will come in from the bottom with a flat washer and a lock washer. And it's got to come up through this plate that I haven't cleaned up yet. And it goes like this. Then when you pull this release, this pushes this up. But this looks like it's all bent up. See that? We gotta straighten that out. And then the plate will slide. And so I'll drill them out. They wallowed these holes out, but these bolts won't fit still. Let me drill them. And then I don't know if I can use this broken bit. It won't start probably. Probably not, but I'll wipe up the grease and stuff off that, and I'll probably put it in a vise so I don't hurt my fingers. I think I'll just try using that clamp, line it up over the holes here, see if that works. You believe a broken bit with an end looking like that just did that? Well, now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set our motor on there, or I don't know what this is called, but our worm gear, and see if things will work, you know. And if it will, I gotta see if I got some Loctite so I can put in the bolts, get some proper washers on there, flat washers and lock. I think if I was doing this, you know me, always complaining, right? What I would do is I would have made the motor the strong part and mounted this solid to the plate, and then had an idler pulley in here with an adjustment like on an alternator so that you can loosen. You got to make a weak point, and that'll mount like that onto this. So the big holes go up in the bottom of this. And then these smaller holes, the bolts are good, and those are what you tighten up. And then it's got the adjustment screws on this to slide the plate. But that thing pulled so hard on this, it tilted. I still got to fix this pulley. You see how they made a guide right here? Maybe they should have done a guide right here and here, so this can't turn too, you know, because this plate can't go anywhere if it's held down. These should have been higher, but if it can't move only back and forth this way with belt tension. This is your weak link, because this could turn, and that's what happened. It turned and lifted like that. So, and what I could do is probably bolt it from the bottom, and I could go ahead and got a couple metal slivers, so I better clean them out. And I could put the same thing, as just weld a couple corner brackets on there to keep this thing from turning. Then it would stay in straight alignment. That's a good idea. Now if this sat on there, just about like that, I could weld a little corner stop. I think that would make a lot of sense. Be nice if there was more bolt attachments here that I could put a bracket coming up. I still have to bend this up straight. That's probably part of this release problem. And then I'll put the bolts in, and I'll take a Sharpie and I'll make corner marks, and then I could weld in that, and that would hold this there, because that's a weak point, just relying on the bolts to do this all the time. Alright, so I got 4 bolts started under here, so that locates it straight. A little bit of play there, but if we mark this, and if I stayed so I could just see the blue line, I'll weld them something. It's got to be short. I'm gonna have to go look in my scrap. Be nice to have a whole box it sits in, but I'm not going to go to that trouble. I don't know if that's necessary, but remember, our belt is pulling on one edge, making it twist, so right now it won't twist, but we're relying on the bolts, and if we can get the body of this to stay still, then we're going to rely on the steel bracket and these other 4 bolts under here. So well, I think that's a design flaw. They'll probably say no, it's normal, but I doubt it. And I better fix the pulley before I keep going. And then I'll measure this. It's going to be pulling that way. I probably don't need to put anything on this side. I think if I had something straight here, probably should be on this corner. making it turn, but maybe it'll do the same thing here. So I'll see, and I'll measure that, and I'll see if I can get some pieces of steel and weld them on. Well, what if I did this? I've got in my bucket pile these old square nuts. I could do something like this, and then when that unit's on here, it has to lift up to come unhooked. That would work too. That was ready to fly off. To be locked down. If I should take it out, put something on there to gotta see if I got my thread locker. I don't know where I set it. It should have been in the toolbox top drawer, but it's not. I get in a hurry and the parts or the tools go in a bucket and you move on, and I'll get it later, and I don't get it later, guys. I gotta have time to Clean the toolbox. Ken's Carpentry there, he had a video on cleaning the trailer or something like that. Andrew Camerata had cleaning his shop, sweeping the floor. See, there's no thread locker. I would have put something on there. Thread tape, anything to keep this from moving. I got some Loctite red. Hopefully there's some in it. I haven't used it in a while. Come on, give me some. Some of these important things. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. It's not empty, is it? I could get some thread tape, silicone, just something to put on them threads to make them. Look at that. Nothing. Are you kidding me? Not a thing. Well, I think this is the only one I have. You look around. Uh-oh, it's starting to sprinkle. So I'm going to have to get moving along here. I have to put this in the carport. I'm just going to use thread tape. Get some on that thread, pull it tight. Enough to hold this from vibrating loose. The nice ones, they use one of these on the keyway and then they set a second one on the top of it. Let's see if I can get that down in there. Probably put too much tape on it. As long as the tape stays with the thread and not wind up in a ball. Yeah, it stayed on there. It's definitely tighter. And we're on the key. Yep, we're on the key. We'll just take something and get that snug here. Hopefully not breakage. Get her tight. That should hold it. Now the pulley doesn't wiggle. The thread tape should hold it there. And now what we're going to do, flip her over, take out my messed up bolts. I just threw some spacer crap on there to hold it still. And then I want to clean up my welds, make it look a little nicer. They're not on there very tight, but I just wanted it square to the bracket. And then I got to fix a bend in this bracket. There's a little bend in it. And I don't know if I got any of this paint, but if I put some kind of paint or it should be rusted right away. Set this crap aside. Now, let's see if I mess this up, right? All four is located right. You see where my marks are. And then this should sit right in there. It has about 1 or 2 millimeters of room, and that's it. So that definitely will keep the belt on. I'm pretty happy. I think that's a good idea. Let me pick up my mess. I've got a couple sprinkles happening. Get ready to move quick. All right, I didn't have any. It looks like John Deere green, but I didn't have any of that color. I just had some enamel green, whatever. Nobody's gonna see it. So I'm gonna mount this on here. Like so. See this? Now it can't turn. That's awesome. Our pulley's tight. I got the bolts and I had some lock nuts and I put them on in reverse. And I can do two things. I can either put a washer on, a lock washer, which I don't have the right size handy, and that may lock it down, or I might just do that, thread them in as far as I can get them, and then lock the nut up to the plate, which should work well. So I just got to check the depth here and see if that'll work. And then if it does, we are in business. So I don't know how thick this is. Well, it looks like we got to have a larger washer on it. So probably not a lock washer. if I use that lock nut. So I'll put like a big slide washer on it. All the hardware fell out down there on the job, so I don't know what was up there. See if this will work and thread, I don't know. See, I don't know if that lock nut will work. The length, let's see what we got here. It might work. But I just want to make sure that it tightens up well, you know. And we did well on that because every one of the screws go in. That's cool. So now I'll just work on the right washer setup. Let's look at this belt while we're at it. It says Threev, Threev, China, A965. And 2010 to 2011. I think I bought this in 2012. And it's a 38-inch belt. So I slipped the belt on there. And this will wiggle back and forth. It's not tight yet. I just started the bolts in it. Now we got to put a nut on the inside here for our belt adjustment. And then wing this in to grab it. Yeah, I got a couple missing parts fell on the ground down there somewhere, but I'll come up with them here. The bolts, hardware stuff. But I think we got a better system going on here. Here's a tensioner now. We're going to definitely want more tension. So I got a 1/2 inch. We'll crank this down. And I think if I do this a little bit uneven, so it's tilted this way, it's even going to help us tighten that in that click there, you know. Instead of having them exactly the same distance, I could probably, you know, pull it back just a little. Like that. We'll check our tension. Usually want a 1/2 inch or something. I don't want it so tight it's going to be rough on it. It's getting tighter. When I opened this up, it was all over the place, you know, it was not good. I think I gotta loosen it. I gotta thread this in because this can't stick out or the plate won't go on there. Better put a dash of oil on them threads. Alright, so I put a little silver anti-seize on these. And I want to run the bolts in all the way here. This will coat them up nice. Yeah, I left this outside a few times, so things got wet. They got this powder coat. Everybody thinks it's great stuff, and I don't agree. I don't think it really sticks that well to the metal, and it breaks off in chunks. My dump trailer did that. Now we gotta get this tighter. And it rusted underneath the powder coat. I could tear out big sheets of it. See how nice this slides in the guide? There we go, look at that. And these are in touching. Our belt, we got about almost 1 inch of deflection. I don't want it too tight. And then, yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. Now we'll do the lock nuts. Lock this bad boy down. Okay, now we can tighten up these motor bolts. don't know what you call it, a motor, but it's whatever, worm gear. And then there's also bolts that go straight down through that lock. I don't understand what they're for even. But there's 4 that go in that, and then there's the 4 that go in the motor part. Let me tighten those up. Well, I probably ought to put the bolts down through first. And those are a small bolt with a washer. And I don't know if they fell out. Let me see how many of them fell out. These have anti-seize on them, so I must have dealt with them once. And let's see, we got 4 that matches. Let me grab my hardware. Alright, I got the bolts tight up here. I got 3 bolts with lock nuts on. I decided to put this thing in there, and this is going to be help holding it down. Right now I had to put a different bolt in it. This one's stripped out. This is like a aluminum cast, I think, and it just pulled the threads out. So I'm going to have to drill that one larger. I don't know what this hole was for. I don't think anything was in that. And then I got to put a longer bolt, and I'll be able to wrench this down, and that'll hold it down there. I think that's a good idea. I'm trying to come up with as many solutions as I can. So I'm going to have to drill and tap that out larger. The hole's only about a 1/2 inch deep, and that's the problem. You're not getting very many threads in it. So I drilled this out 2 sizes smaller than the bolt. See if we can get a little bit of thread going here. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to buy one of these, and I probably wouldn't buy one just for this reason. I'd probably design a plate to come up and come over and have it exact tolerance so that it can't move before I'd buy one of them. I don't know if I'm bottomed out here. Let's see. But these Harbor Freights, man, these are so cheesy. It doesn't, tolerances are terrible. What a waste of money they are. Yeah, we got a little thread starting. Almost to the bottom. That's the problem, is they don't go in very far, and these are a tapered bit. I don't know if it can go any deeper. I don't want to drill into the case because I don't know how thin it is, and I don't want to get dirt into the, you know, this is filled with oil. So, let's see if a bolt will fit in there. This is the only bolt that was in the bottom that survived. That looks like about a 7/16 that I don't have out here. Let me grab one and see if we can get that snugged up, you know. The bolt tightens, but I don't know if that washer's compressed. I think I'm going to put a flat washer under it. Yeah, I'll put a flat washer. And then, I don't know if this is thick enough. I'm going to confirm it's tight, you know. There. I like that. Okay, so now we got all our top bolts on. We got our 4, I don't know, worm gear bolts in. This strap I made is a little bit short, which is great, so that when I tighten the bolt, it's going to suck that down. Now the bolt I got to put in has got to be longer. And the lock nut, I'll put another lock nut on it. And I got to have a, let's see, it's in the slot, I got to have a washer. Let's see if this is too long. That's about perfect. And then I don't need a washer there. These are 1/2 inch. Awesome. So now the ratchet, you see where I put my 18-bolt ratchet. I hear a woodpecker over there. I'll tighten this from the bottom. This should draw the motor down tight. Yeah, the right belt tension? No, we don't yet. So we got to tighten this up. I had to loosen it. Check our belt tension. Oh yeah. And that's probably pretty good. And at least 1/2 inch. And let's tighten these up while I'm thinking about it. That anti-seize works great, but it's a mess. And then we'll tighten this one up. That woodpecker's in the ash tree, and we get the boring beetle, ash borer, and that's a shame. I like the tree. That sucked that motor right down. And then we'll go around and do all 4 corners here. But the ash tree, it splits really nice when you want firewood. It dries very fast. The grain's usually fairly straight. Really nice tree, and the ash boring beetles getting a lot of them, almost all of them. And once the beetle gets in it, then the woodpeckers come. Look at that, this thing's working. The sun's out, it's getting hot and humid, and I put my funny hat on because I don't like my neck fried. I like wearing it when I'm in the woods, and it keeps the mosquitoes off me too. When I'm on a roof working or something, you're getting baked by the sun, it keeps you a little cooler. Alright, so our belt, I don't know. The belt almost feels too tight now when I tighten it down. I might loosen that back up. I probably shouldn't have went that little extra. But maybe if I fired it up, I could see this will spin without the drive shaft. Because there is like a burn spot on this belt where it got damaged from falling off. There's a couple little cracks in it. So I'll be buying a belt shortly, and I marked it up here, the size. Probably better order one and have it. I did bend this bracket down, so now this comes up and clears it nice. And then I think that's too much belt tension, so I'll back that off a little bit. Alright, I loosen that up, then I retighten the bolts. We got play now, and then we've got to put all this stuff back together. I'll pull the pin out of that, and then I'll start assembling the drive shaft, and I might need a helper to compress that spring. I got to figure that out. Alright, well, this spring goes on here, and this has to fit way back there. I took this off and it was bent right around, so when this took off, it hooked on that and bent it, and that's what bent this. So I got both of them straightened out, and then now maybe I can just pry this in there. Pretty heavy spring. Keep the fingers out of the way. I don't want it like that. Ugh, get her up there like that. bring that down. And then that's how it pops into neutral right there. It locks until you pull this lever. And this should bring it forward. I don't want to do it yet. So I want to get this bolt in there. And that goes way down. Now it went in. See how that goes? And it locks there. A bolt went way over there. Just so it wasn't my finger. And then we got to put the bolt and the lock nut on it. We got to stretch it now. And get this to line up like that. And then I'm going to start a lock nut. It had a spacer nut in there. And it's new condition. But looking at it, lining up with the cable, I don't think it needs it. That looks pretty straight to me. I'd leave it like that. Just put the lock nut on it. So it can't fall apart. Now I'm going to get the drive shaft parts. It's already got the inner one in. Now I'll put the outer one in. And, oh, and the collar fell off. It's this multi-piece. Goes on there, and that's what locks it into gear. And that kicks it out into neutral. Uh-oh. See what I see? I didn't see that earlier. Thought I looked at everything. It broke a chunk off in this. This ear's broke. I don't know. Is it going to work? Or do I have to do some welding? Because this will go in like this. This rides right up on the gear, right up into the housing. See if I can get this up in there. Looks like I got to do this as a unit. But that's your drive system. Part of the corner's gone on it. I hope it'll still work. See if I can set this in, or if I got to tear all that apart, because it kind of exploded, if you remember. It fell all apart. Yeah, all this is in the way, so I'm going to leave this alone. Just take this out. And oh, look, there we go. Now it's making sense. There's another bolt missing here. I must have broke that. I don't know if I got any parts left. I got 1, 2 washers, and that's it. So it must have broke that bolt off. So I'll take this one out, and I'll get a second one for that one. They're 1/2 inch. I'll go get some more parts. All right, I found another bolt. I got another lock nut. Yep. And I took this bolt out. Now that can come right out of there. Then this part rides up here. This is your engage, disengage. And it fits with that missing ear, it fits. But now I know there's a little part broken. I may have to weld that. So this has to fit on there. And it can't while that's in, so you got to put these in as a unit, I guess. Yeah, like that. And then we put our bolt in. Yeah. Not so easy, right? I should have been an engineer. Line up. Try to do both sides at the same time. Does it line up? See my ratchet. Yeah, working on greasy stuff, right? Alright, that one's in there. See if it lines up square enough. There. Now we'll put our lock nuts on. Oh, we found a nut down in here. Let's see what that is. That's a lock nut right there. So it must be the bolt just fell out of that. That's cool. Maybe the bolt's in here. I gotta vacuum this debris out of here yet, but I don't see any more parts in there. So let's tighten this up, and then actually I don't want to tighten it up, I just want to bring them down. Close up this gap a little because this still has to pivot. And this one, I can't get that in there. I have to get a second wrench. And then let's see where the second wrench is. Well, I'm getting a little excited now. It's getting closer together. So far I haven't ordered any parts. I just used what I have. Tighten this evenly and it'll center over this. So I probably got that first one a little too tight. Now it's bringing it back centered to the drive shaft here. Let's see if this pivots. Yeah, it's still got to go that way a little bit. I can see like an air gap around that. That looks good. And it's not too tight. Now we got to put this bolt in. I got to get another one, don't I? Where's that bolt? Use anything probably. I got 4 bolts that hold the plate on. Gotta keep them. That's probably what this one is. Yep. Alright, so this ought to work. So this had a nut spacer, and now as we drew this one up, and it's centered over the drive shaft, this bracket, now it's tilted, so we're going to want that spacer in there. High quality, just sticking a nut in there, I guess. And then this even lines up better now. There. And again, the lock nut, so we don't have to tighten it up. Let it swivel still. I don't think the bolt's long enough to make the lock nut work properly. It just comes in contact with the lock part, so they'll probably vibrate and fall out. So better change it now. Let's go look for another bolt. It can't be very long though, because it'll interfere with the drive shaft. And that looks to be about an inch. So we need about 1.25 inches one. Let me go hunt up a bolt. Alright, I got a 1.25 inch bolt, and that should work. Because you got to get that neoprene onto the thread all the way, or else the lock nut isn't going to work. Hopefully it's not so long it's going to interfere with our drive shaft here and our spring. And that's a bigger bolt. That's 9/16. want that tight either, because it's got to be able to move. Now, this is locked in, so if I put the drive shaft on, it won't spin. It'll just be in neutral. Now you pull this, lifts this up to unhook the lock, like that, and it's supposed to pull forward. The spring is supposed to pull forward, so looks like my bolts up top are a little bit tight. I'm going to back this one off a little bit. And this one. Yeah, that moves. And that's that cable. It's right in here. And then when you pull this lever down, it shoves this up, puts it in neutral. That's if you get a branch caught. And then the lock mechanism comes on, and then you pull that up to release it. But this still isn't really that strong of a spring on there. Goes to there, clicks up. I think with it running and shaking, it's probably going to slide right in there. But it does work right now. See that? So you can see right here that it's in neutral. There's a 1/4 inch gap. And so this will be spinning with the belt, with the flywheel. You'll be able to chip, just the feeder won't run. And then when you pull this again to reset it, this drops forward. This turns and locks in right there. And I think it will with that spring on. So I think we're pretty good right now. And if we go and figure out how I can manhandle that spring in there, we've got the other part of the drive shaft goes here on this square lug, and that fits in there. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. We got to do it as a unit, don't we? Oh, no. Because we're not going to have enough play. Oh, yeah. We should be able to get that on there. We should. Now I can reach over and just turn the auger. Yep. And we're good. That spring goes from here to here. And it's about, looks like it's 10, maybe 10 inches long. So we got to compress this thing quite a bit. We find the tape measure. So we got, this spring is 9 1/4 inches, and that's 4 1/4. We got to compress this spring 5 inches. Yeah, right. So I take this back off, pull that off, put this on, put this in there, call for help, phone a friend, call your buddy, say, come on, help me, bring this down, pinch your fingers. Oh man, that's a lot of pressure. Need a spring compressor. And if I do it with a pair of pliers, if it's going to kink it sideways, how come nothing's easy? And if I put this on first, which you're thinking, I probably wouldn't have been able to get them bolts in proper because they'd want to cock this off on an angle. So I'm probably doing it the right way, but they must have a tool to compress that spring, and that's your neutral spring. Oh, man. I'll turn my roller and see if I don't get my fingers. Ooh, look at that. Okay. That spring pushes this and locks it on. Right now it's locked in. And then when I pull this lever down, let me move you over a little bit. When I move this release lever, if it bogs down, like it grabs a 6-inch branch and it's hogging it right in, it'll want to stall sometimes. So you grab this lever here and pull it down, and that should kick it in neutral. See, the feed roller goes up and up and up, and it should go to the top. Yeah. So that works. And now I'm going to lean on the cable, which I think is out of, maybe not, it's moving. When I press this cable, it should lock that little slide lever right there. Wow, it's working. Because what it did, you can see, is it just put it in neutral. That means that I should be able to turn this roller by hand. Yeah. No kidding. Now I release this again. That should lock it in. I turn it and the drive shaft should lock right here. Right there. Now I can't turn the feed roller because it's hooked up through the worm, through the belt to the PTO shaft. So, no way. Are we all fixed, guys? It sure looks it. The only bolts I got left are the 4 bolts that holds this big heavy cover on to protect you. And wow, there's no grease fittings on the U-joints. You trip this cable again. It is working. The rod's straight. The cable's got a slight gap in it, so I think it's adjusted. I might as well grease this again. While I got it off, I got 2 grease fittings right there. Let me grab the grease gun. This tray down in here has an opening, so I'll just shove these little sticks and stuff right out the opening. I gotta clean up the driveway anyway. I got all them grapevines out of the roller feed. I think we're in good shape. And then the cable I lubed. So now let's do these grease fittings. I got one of these little locking lubes on here. If it locks. It's supposed to be up to 10,000 pounds or something. Well, that worked. That really worked. I don't want to smudge out so much it gets on our belt. And then, I don't know if I need to put anything in there. I probably ought to just take a little of the extra, put on that slide shaft, maybe a little bit on this. That'll be spinning, that'll melt in there. And then, there's a little bit that goobered out by the edge of the pulley, and I don't want it on the belt. We'll put some of that on the drive shaft. Let's see, get a stick, something that'll reach down in there. There we go. Don't over grease it because it gets on everything. I'm excited. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna fire this up and let's watch a process here. We'll leave my guard off for now. And I got those tight, these are tight. The 4 bottom ones are tight. These are tight for the adjustment. These are all lock nuts, so they don't get tight. They just get up almost a touch. I'm ready to fire this up. Let me find the key. Fire it up, Terrell. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, I don't know if you can see the functions. I want to get you close enough that you can see this function, and yet I want to use it as, you know, come back here and I'll try the release rod, I'll try the cable, try everything out. Let's see how it works. gonna do it at idle first so I can watch things. This pump still moves around a little bit. That's why I wanted to put this on there. I wonder if I should bring up one on this side too. Hold that thing down, you know. The belt looks like it's running true. And this is 30 to 1, so that goes 30 times to this one time. Let me try my roller up. Can you see our feed roller? Our feed roller's right there. See how sharp it is? It grabs and pulls. I'm going to flick the cable on here and let it go. See some of the grapevines still wound in there. I'll probably have to pick them out of there before I put the cover on. So you can see the feeder in there. Without that working, it won't draw the brush in, you know. You gotta push it out. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to rev her right up and give it to it here. Neutral even with the roller going on. And it did. And then here's the release. Back in. Oh, it's working, guys. Let's see what it cost me. A handful of bolts that I had in a parts bucket. Some washers, a little bit of grease, some lock nuts I had. I didn't go buy anything. The only thing, like I said, this might be a good idea. I don't know how strong it is. But this worm gear is wobbling because it's a balance issue, you know. That's probably what wallowed them bolts out. I think it's going to work though. I think I'll go ahead and clean the drive roller out, get the rest of them grapevines out of there. I'll push on the cable. That's if you get in trouble, you lean on it. That's your safety. When you lay on your belly, you can't get up there anyway. You can't reach it unless you climb up in the machine. Ah, it's working. Alright guys, thank you for watching. We'll see you when we get back going. We use this at a customer's house. Got him all taken care of. The last few branches, they said throw them out in the weeds there, so we did. The rabbits will like them. And then we got a whole bunch to do here because Dawson wants some around his flower beds and I want some around my flower beds. So we're going to put this to use. So we'll see you later, guys. Little bonus, guys. I bent another one and put on there. They're not attractive, but they're 90 degree, and it's not wobbling now. And I think with our welded nut and our shoulder thing up there, this isn't going to turn anymore, and all of our mechanisms are working. I'll press that cable again. That kicked it right here in neutral. lever. It knocks right back in. This is working better than it did brand new. I think it was just bad engineering. I think if we had a nice plate cut out that went across down at a 90-degree here, that would be a nice way to do it. These might work. Just so it does shaking around, it's not going to hurt the bolts any, you know, and they're all lock bolts. So thanks for watching. We'll see you later. Watch how long this takes to stop. Kick her in neutral here. The tractor's not running. That belt's running nice and true. Awesome. See you next time.